I want to say something to young men out there. I get that it's easy to look around and say that life is difficult. Inflation has caused the power of the dollar to evaporate, so you're probably listening to this while living in your parents' basement. The media has proclaimed that masculinity is toxic, so you've never gotten close enough to a woman to smell her hair for fear of getting locked up for sexual harassment. The role of men as leaders and providers is mocked, so you're aimless and unsure of where to go. I get all of that, but let me tell you this. If your answer is to follow a 5'7", closeted twink, internet hate monger down the path of resentment to perpetual virginity, you're doing it wrong. The groyper movement is full of edgelord losers, and you don't want any part of it. Men can still be men in this world, and a man doesn't get anywhere by whining about fairness or playing the victim. Puff your chest, go make yourself better. That's how you win. I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Okay, hello everybody, welcome. In case you couldn't tell from the intro, I was talking about Nick Fuentes, and we're going to be talking about him on the show today. We're also going to talk about Tucker Carlson, the groyper movement, anti-Semitism. It's all going to be rolled into one giant ball topic because they all go together hand in hand, in hand in hand. So it's going to be a lot to get through. We're going to try my best to plow through it and do it in a timely manner because I could probably give an entire semester series lecture on my thoughts on these topics because it's pervasive at this point, and it is, this week in particular, it has become a gigantic talking point in right-wing media. So we got a lot to get to. But before we do that, my favorite comment from last week comes from Carol Radakovich, who just said, "Great message." End quote. Thank you. Appreciate it. Being grateful, as I said in last week's video, it was a much different place. I was on a beach in San Juan. Life is all about being grateful. You won't do it perfectly all the time. You're going to be sad. You are going to be angry. You might be resentful. You're going to have a broad range of emotions at all points in your life. But when you can remember all of the good things you have, all of the troubles seem less daunting. There's always some good in everything. I really do find that that's helpful. It's hard because my go-to emotion is anger. I don't really get sad. I don't really get depressed. I get angry about things. And it took me a long time to try and get that under control, and I still don't. There are certainly times in life that I just, for whatever reason, I get angry. And it would be nice for me to take my own message to heart and really try and remember this more because I don't like walking around angry. I don't like being angry, just like I don't like being sad. I think life is finite and it is important to try and enjoy it when you can. I try and do my best, and I feel like for the most part I do. But I'm not perfect. Nobody is. So anyway, thank you for the message. And remember my message. Be grateful. The more grateful you are, the happier you will be. Now, let's get on to the only topic, topic one. What should we do on the right about, quote unquote, our side? As I said, there's a lot to unpack this week. Let me get my little timer over here. Oh my gosh, clicked the wrong button. Okay. I want to be able to look at my timer while I'm doing this so I can kind of gauge at how long I've been going because, like I said, there's a lot to unpack. What are we talking about this week? Why are we talking about Nick Fuentes? So, as many of you are probably aware, Tucker Carlson, I think it may have been 2 weeks ago at this point. Like I said, I was on vacation last week, so we didn't really get to talk about it, but they're still talking about it this week, so I feel like it's still topical. Tucker Carlson did an interview with Nick Fuentes. I'm sure some of you, maybe most of you, thankfully, don't know who Nick Fuentes is. I could sum him up by saying he's a scumbag, but I'm going to try and be charitable here and describe him in a fair and balanced way. Nick Fuentes is an internet personality, hosts a show. He's been on a bunch of podcasts. He is an activist. He's part of the America First movement, or he would like to think he's part of the America First movement, or he is the movement. He is again, I'm trying, as I do this, I'm trying to be charitable. I'm not trying to attribute to him my beliefs. I'm trying to think what I actually think he believes. I'm not just calling him names when I say this. He is a white nationalist. He is a leader of the groypers, who we're going to talk about later. This guy is a misogynist. I believe him to be a racist. I don't know if he would say that. I think he's actually denied he's a racist in the past, but I do believe he is racist. I think that he's crossed lines into racism. He's a Holocaust denier. Again, he denied that, but he's done it on air, and we're going to get into that particular charge in a little bit. He's a bad guy. This is a bad person. Okay? That is a moral judgment on him. I think he is a bad guy. But he's fairly popular. He has an audience, I think, primarily driven of young men, white Christian young men. And I think that he is the leader of a movement that is a toxic, cancerous movement in America. And so he's just a bad guy. I do not like him. I do not care for him. If you like Nick Fuentes, that's fine. You're entitled to like Nick Fuentes, but it makes me question your judgment because I believe him to be a bad guy. He's funny. He says some funny things sometimes. He definitely has humor that is funny, edgy, and I get it. I get the appeal. He is relatively charismatic. Okay, so he's not bad at what he does. But being good at something doesn't mean that you're a good person. And he is a bad dude when it comes to his beliefs. Again, we're going to dive into this at all. I'm trying to just describe who he is so you get a picture. I'm not going to play any clips of him. I could have a compilation video right now of 10 hours worth of things that he said that I find abhorrent, that I find morally objectionable. I'm not going to do that. I'm not even going to play his audio on my show because I could do a compilation of his ridiculous I love Hitler routine. I could do the way he talks about women, the way he talks about black people. I could do any of it. It's garbage content that I think is completely toxic to any sort of Republican conservative brand. I think that he's a bad dude. Anyway, he was on Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson had this person on his show. And Nick Fuentes has this interesting, unique ability. As I said, he is charismatic. He's funny. He says some things. You can take little 10, 20-second clips of him doing something and you go, all right, that is funny. But when you take him as a whole, again, the actual views that he espouses are terrible and misguided and immoral. But he does this routine where he uses his humor and he uses irony to cover his beliefs in a way that I believe is disingenuous because I think he actually does believe the things he's being ironic about. For example, the example I'm going to use is this Holocaust denial thing. He says he's not a Holocaust denier. He says he never denied the Holocaust. He went on his show and did this whole routine about cookies, baking cookies. How would you bake 6 million cookies? How many ovens would it take to bake 6 million cookies over the course of a period of time? Where would the smoke go? How would you dispose of the cookies when you burned them? Blah, blah, blah. This whole thing about Holocaust denial to basically say that the math of the Holocaust, that 6 million Jews died from Nazi death camps, that this whole thing didn't add up. He does this whole routine. And then he goes on later. He says, no, I was just being ironic. I was just trying to say something, but I am actually not a Holocaust denier. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying that I was being sarcastic. This is garbage. This is nonsense. This is garbage. And this is not a defense because it's not a joke. He's not joking about what he's saying. This irony is being used to prove a point, not to say he doesn't believe the point. But he does this with a lot of things. He says, I'm not a racist. But he'll say some blatantly racist things and then say, I was just being ironic. I was just being funny. I was making a joke. I'm an edgelord. That's what I do. I like to be scandalous for laughs, for shits and gigs. And I find this despicable. I love edgy humor. I love irony. I love sarcasm. My intros are, if you watch the show, you know my intros are typically sarcastic. I make up fake quotes and make up fake people and do all sorts of things because it's obviously the joke part. But I'm not normally just joking about nothing. Normally I'm joking to make fun of a point, or it has some belief that underlies that why I'm making the joke. Because that's the point of the show. My show is a commentary on politics, philosophy, culture. That's what I do. That's my thing. And it's what I write about. It's what I talk about. So that's what Nick Fuentes does. Nick Fuentes does what I do. He has a much larger audience. He has different views. He would describe himself, I believe, as someone on the right. I'm also on the right. But we don't have a lot of overlap in what we believe. He is so far to the right of me that I don't understand him. That he's basically circled around to the left for me. That's what he looks like, and I'll get into that in a little bit as well. But the point is, that's what we do. So when he makes a joke, it's like when I make a joke. When I make a joke, there's some underlying truth to what I'm doing. When I'm being sarcastic, when I'm being ironic, I'm trying to make a point. And when I use humor, I'm trying to make a point with it because I'm not a comedian. Because my job, as you could call this a job, my job with this show is to tell you what I think and to try and bring ideas to people and to engage with people with their ideas so that we can have a conversation. That's the point. That is what the show is for. That's what his show is for. So when he uses irony as a defense, it's not really a defense. Because to me, I said that doesn't work. You see this with late night comedians where they make jokes and they say, well, I'm just a comedian. And then you go, well, you're talking about politics a lot for someone who's just a comedian. Or you see Dave Smith, this moron, who basically just talks about the Jews all the time. And that's what all the content I see about this guy, he's just ripping on the Jews. And he goes, well, I'm just a comedian. I'm not an expert. I'm not a war correspondent. I'm not this. I'm not that. Well, you spend an awful lot of your time talking about the Jews for someone who's not an expert in anything that has to do with the topic. Maybe you should shut up. Or maybe you should just admit that you're not going to hide behind, well, I'm just a comedian, and just say your points. And when people say, well, you're completely wrong because you're a fool, you don't get to say, well, I'm just a comedian. Okay. Nick Fuentes does the same thing, except he's not a comedian. He is funny. I'll grant him that. He has some bits that are pretty good. But again, not a comedian. This irony is cover thing is nonsense for cowards. That's what it is. You don't get to hide behind your beliefs, make a joke, and then say, well, I don't really believe it. You do really believe it. Just tell me you believe it, because that's what you believe. And as a man, you should stand up for what you believe. Have some courage of your convictions. Don't hide behind, it's just jokes. It's just all laughs. I don't respect that at all. Why would Tucker Carlson have this person on his show? Tucker Carlson has a huge audience. He still does. Ever since he got let go from Fox News, his audience has not diminished. I think it has grown. He has a very large platform. Tucker Carlson has chosen to have this guy on. Now, I do not want to attribute motive to Tucker Carlson. That is not my job. I'm not here. I can't read his mind. I don't know why he does what he does. I know what he says, and I can take him at his word when he says why he does what he does, but I'm not going to attribute motive to him. But I believe this. I do believe he's fallen down a rabbit hole. And I'm not sure why. I don't know where the belief comes from, but he routinely has people on who are so far outside the mainstream and then proceeds to softball them. So if you're an interviewer, Tucker Carlson's an interviewer, and he can be a contentious interviewer. He can really get after somebody and argue with them. He did this to Ted Cruz about Israel, about his opinions on Iran, about this whole thing. He really got after him and basically refused to have a pleasant conversation with Ted Cruz because Ted Cruz couldn't name the population size of Iran. Okay, it's some ridiculous point he was trying to make. But Tucker Carlson doesn't do this with certain people. Tucker Carlson has on Nick Fuentes. Doesn't ask him a hard question. The whole interview. He basically just softballs him. And you have to say, why does he do this? He did this with Vladimir Putin. He did this. He had on a faux historian, Daryl Cooper, who he did the same thing. To just softball him. Just ask him easy questions, teed him up, let him smack him around. Tucker's doing this because I believe that he agrees with these people. That's why he's not pushing back. He's not pushing back because he wants to hide behind his interviewees, their responses, and platform them and let them tell what they believe, and also because he believes a lot of those ideas. Now, again, I'm not going to say that I know that for sure, but that's the way it looks like because Tucker's a smart guy. When he doesn't ask Vladimir Putin a hard question and says, well, I knew he wouldn't answer him anyway. Okay. But then you go out there and you say, well, Moscow's better than any city in the U.S. Okay. So Vladimir Putin, NATO encroached on his territory, so really he has a legitimate gripe. Okay. You really think that? Now it sounds like you're just on Vladimir Putin's side. Oh, America's really done a bunch of mean things in the Middle East too, So, what leg do we have to stand on? Okay, do you believe that then? Do you think America's the bad guy and Russia's actually doing something right? It's hard to tell, but that's what it seems like. Oh, you have Daryl Cooper on. And Daryl Cooper, you basically allow him to paint Churchill as the villain in World War II. Winston Churchill's the bad guy in World War II? Oh, the Nazis. Hey, the Holocaust was actually an accident because the Nazis took all these people prisoner and they're like, oh, no, we don't have the space for them. Better just put them in a gas chamber and murder them? What are you talking about? And you don't push back on this? You don't say, oh, well, the Nazis actually weren't that bad and Winston Churchill was really the aggressor in World War II. This is the guy? Germany just would have had a war with Poland. They were going to stop right there, but Winston Churchill really antagonized them. What? Tucker Carlson, why are you not saying, what are you talking about? Why are you not doing these things? Then you have Nick Fuentes on. And Nick Fuentes does this interview. You don't ask him any difficult questions. You never say, hey man, why can I play a 40-minute compilation of you talking about your love for Adolf Hitler? Is this all supposed to be jokes and edgy? Because at a certain point, it just seems like you really love Hitler. Because you're saying it's just jokes. Just laughs. But if I have 40 minutes of you doing bits about how you love Hitler and Hitler's a cool guy and, it's Hitler Friday, we're all going to dress up in little mustaches. What? Like, where is this? Where is the questions about this? Instead, you just let him say, well, hey, Nick, why do you think Ben Shapiro's so mean to you? Would it be, you don't say, hey, is it all your anti-Semitism wrong, or do you really believe that? You say, oh, why is that Jew Ben Shapiro so mean to you? I don't understand what's going on with Tucker, but I know that this is a nonsense interview, and I know that when you're putting a guy like Nick Fuentes on your platform to your millions of listeners, you don't ask him any hard questions and you legitimize his views. I can't help but think that that's probably because you believe with some of them. I'm not going to say all of them, but some of them. And this is a gigantic problem because if the legacy media did this, right? Tucker, by the way, it's just coming to me right now as I'm thinking about this. Tucker Carlson has a fantastic takedown of the legacy media. He did it, I don't remember, it was a couple years ago, maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago. He was doing a little Q&A, and this faux journalist, asked him a question. And he does a 10-minute takedown of the legacy media that is brilliant. Just 100% correct, absolutely diagnoses, describes, and then has an answer for the solution to legacy media and why the trust in journalism has crumbled. He does this brilliant takedown. So he understands the problem with the legacy media. If the legacy media went to Joe Biden and said for 4 years, Joe, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? And is it vanilla? And you go, oh, all right. So the legacy media sucks because they just agree with Joe Biden and they want to make him look good and they're on his team so they don't ask him any hard questions. And they ask every Republican, they'll say, Ted Cruz, what's the square root of 1,027? And if you can't give it to me, then why do you hate black people? And Ted Cruz goes, wait, hold on. You just asked Joe Biden what his favorite flavor of ice cream was. And then you're saying, if I don't answer the square root of 1,027, I hate black people. It seems like your questions are a little unfair and kind of unhinged and unbalanced. Tucker Carlson understands this. So when you put Nick Fuentes, and that's why, by the way, we'll accuse the legacy media of being in the pocket for the Democrats. Well, who is Tucker Carlson in the pocket of then? Because I'm not saying someone's paying him. What I mean is you have a guy on here, you softball him, you would accuse the legacy media of being in Joe Biden's pocket. Well, do you believe what Nick Fuentes says? Do you believe what Daryl Cooper says? You don't ask them any hard questions. You don't push back. You don't say, well, I don't know. What about X, Y, and Z? You just let them talk. Is that because you just believe them? Because you don't do the same for Ted Cruz when he talks about Israel. You don't do the same for Ted Cruz when he talks about his foreign policy views when it comes to Iran. You're more than happy to push back when you don't agree with someone's ideas. So what does that say when you don't agree with Nick Fuentes, if you're Tucker Carlson? To me, it says that you know what you're doing. You know what you believe, and you must believe at least some of it. I think Tucker Carlson has lost his way. I got a book. Yeah, right up there. It's hard to see. It's actually a little washed out. It's right here-ish. Yeah, right there. There's a book. Tucker Carlson call it A Ship of Fools. It's okay, all right. Tucker Carlson has some interesting things to say. He's a smart person. He is. So he knows what he's doing, and it's a bad, bad thing to say. I don't, again, I think it's an issue because there's a problem that is growing on the right. So for the last, we're going to have to go back here. Here's why this is an issue, why I care about it. Because right now, the last year in particular, maybe the last 2 years in particular, what we've seen on the left is a complete capture of the radical left of the Democrat Party. Now, this doesn't mean that the, 70 million people who voted for Kamala Harris are all radicals. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, the Democrat Party is beholden to the radical left in a way that the right is not. And people are going to disagree with that, and that's fine. Let me explain. The progressive energy in the left, this anti-Israel, anti-capitalist, DEI everywhere, anti-white, this progressive energy is the only thing driving the Democrat Party. The middle-class blue dog Democrats are dead. The moderate Democrats are dead. It's been all pro-trans, pro-black, pro-socialism on the Democrat side. That's where the energy is. It doesn't say that everyone in the party believes that, but that's where the energy is. That's what's pushing the party. And you can see this manifest in one way in particular, the hatred of Jews by the Democrat Party. It is unbelievable, the anti-Semitic behavior of the left. And this comes from a variety of things. Now, this is where the thesis that I would write on this would be pages long, because this is just the argument, trying to describe the argument without actually getting into the argument. We could just talk for an hour. A lot of this comes from a couple of different places. One is mass migration. Mass migration fuels anti-Semitism because in the large chunks of the world, it's very anti-Semitic. It's particularly the 30-something Muslim countries in the world, very anti-Semitic. We have imported them. It started in Europe. You can see it in Europe. Europe is not safe for Jewish people. The first time since World War II, I think it's pretty safe to say there are many countries, with the exception of Hungary, there are many countries where you can't walk down the streets openly Jewish in certain areas of major cities. You think London or Paris or the southern parts of Italy, you can just walk around openly Jewish. You are putting yourself at risk. And many Jews have acknowledged this. It is a dangerous time in Europe. The only thing that separates Europe and America is an ocean. That's it. Because mass migration here has led to an increase in anti-Semitism from the large portion of the Muslim population, but also young people who are obsessed with the oppressor-oppressed mentality. This victimhood mentality that has been pushed forth by postmodernists, the progressive left, paints Israel as the oppressor and Palestine as the oppressed. They side with terrorists like Hamas over democratically elected politicians in Israel because they don't know any better. They are ignorant. This is where the energy is. This is why BDS, the Boycott, Divest, Sanction movement, is completely anti-Semitic. It's targeted at the only Jewish country in the world. That's where the energy is. We watched this for the last decade unfold on the left until the entire party has been captured by anti-Semites. You do not find many pro-Israel Democrats elected to high office. They just don't exist. They're not out there, with the exception of John Fetterman. You don't see a lot of Democrats out there who are willing to stand up for Jews. You just don't. On the right, we haven't had this problem because the far right, the part that is anti-Semitic, the far right neo-Nazi nonsense, they hold no power in American politics. You don't see, what you see on the right, a lot of pro-Israel Republicans. That's what you see. You don't see a lot of anti-Israel Republicans elected to high office because neo-Nazis hold no party power. They do not have power in the Republican Party. They're not conservative in the true sense of the word. Fascism is not conservatism. Fascism is closer to socialism than it is to true conservatism. So these people don't hold power. But that's changing. And what we've seen on the left is that it didn't take a lot. The progressive energy, the progressive beliefs, this democratic socialism nonsense, the anti-Semitism, this anti-Jew hatred, this kind of stuff isn't popular in the Democratic Party, but it took over the party. It's where the party is now. On the right, we're having that fight right now. That's what today is. That's why it's important that we talk about Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, because I believe Nick Fuentes to be an anti-Semite. I don't know if he would disagree with that. If he does, I don't know how he disagrees with that. He is anti-Semitic. He does not like Jews. I think that is pretty clear. The same way I think it's pretty clear he doesn't like black people, and he's pretty misogynistic against women. I think that those things are pretty clear. He might disagree with me. I don't know. I think that about him. So when you're looking at this and you're saying, well, Tucker Carlson, one of the mainstream voices on the right, is platforming this guy, giving him a chance to legitimize his views. We have to have that fight because Nick Fuentes is not on my team. I don't get to, if we were picking sides in dodgeball, I hope he gets left on the wall and no one picks him. That's what I hope. Because, first of all, because he's 5'7", he's a loser. He probably wouldn't be good at dodgeball. Secondly, because he's a moron, and I don't want him on my team. And I don't think he has good views. I don't think he has anything unique or interesting or insightful to offer the conservative movement. I don't believe that. I think he's a bad guy. And I understand, there might be people out there who listen to this show, who listen to Nick Fuentes or hear clips and kind of like what he has to say. Again, sometimes people like this don't get famous. They don't get popular. They don't get followers because they're 100% wrong about things. That's the issue, is that Nick Fuentes, I don't know, throw a number out, 10%, 15%, 20%. Some percentage of what he says is right. Some percentage of what he says is correct. And he uses that little nugget, the little kernel of what he's saying that is right and correct, to then push it to places that are incorrect, wrong, morally repugnant. That's what he does. And this is a problem on the right because I don't want him on my team. I don't want him on my side. And if you like me and you like Nick Fuentes, you have to understand we're not the same. We don't believe the same things. And one of us is going to win. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about me in terms of the Chrestman Conversation. As I said, his show is much bigger than mine. It probably always will be. But what I mean is the beliefs, the old school Burkean conservatism that I believe in versus Nick Fuentes' neo-fascism nonsense that I can't stand. One of those things is going to win. I do not want to see the Republican Party captured by Nick Fuentes. And by the way, it can happen. Because think about this. Go back to 2014. What did the Conservative Party look like? The Conservative Party looked like Mitt Romney. The Conservative Party was Paul Ryan. That's what conservatism was. It was the bow tie. Okay? That's the guy. That was when Tucker Carlson wore the bow tie. That was what the Conservative Party was like. What does it look like now? Now it looks like Trump. Now it looks like America First. Now it looks like MAGA. That's what it looks like. And it happened in the course of a decade. Donald Trump took over that party and reshaped it into something different. So it can happen. And I like what Donald Trump has done with the Republican Party because I believe that though he is not an ideologue, many of the things that he believes are in line with old school conservatism. Not all of it. The tariff stuff, the stimulus checks, he still spends too much. I get that. It's not perfect. No one ever will be. But a lot of what he has, a lot of the beliefs, a lot of the policies, they are traditional conservative things just wrapped up in this charismatic bow tie. I'm fine with that. If somebody like Nick Fuentes takes over the Republican Party, I'm not a Republican. I'm Bill Ackerman. All right, I'm over there. I'm leaving. I'm not going to be part of it because I can't stand him. Because this is not a question about policy. This is a question about morality. He's a bad guy. Okay, he's a bad guy, and I don't want him in my tent. We don't get to share the same space. And it's the same thing. We forget, Tucker Carlson wants to have him on. We forget how he went after Charlie Kirk. We forget how he went after Turning Point, because Turning Point allows Rob Smith, a black, gay conservative, to give talks, and they go there and harass him because he's black and because he's gay. Do I want to be friends with that guy who's harassing Rob Smith, who is a cool guy, who I like? No, I don't want to be friends with that guy. That guy's not my friend because I don't want racism. And when I say Nick Fuentes is right about some things, this is what I'm talking about. wokeism as a movement, as a brain rot disease, has died. And it died because people recognized that it was wrong. Because you don't get to just shut the Overton window and then expect everyone to go along with you. You don't get to do that. So what I mean is, mainstream conservative views were characterized as racist, misogynist, anti-gay, whatever the case may be. Put an ist at the end of it. Islamophobic, whatever the case may be. Mainstream views. Now, I have been accused, and I'll say this, I have been accused of everything under the sun. I've been accused of being a racist, being misogynist, being Islamophobic. I just go through the comments on my videos, and you'll see. People accuse me of this stuff. It's ridiculous. I detest racism. I detest misogyny. Why would people hate women? I love women. Most of my favorite people in the entire world are women. I don't dislike women. Racism, misogyny, Islamophobic. I have issues with Islam. I do. I have very serious questions about the compatibility of conservative Islam and Western values. That is a real concern of mine. Does it mean I don't like Muslims? No. Doesn't mean that at all. It means I do not want Sharia to take over American law. I think it's worse than American law. I think the Constitution of America is a better guiding document than the Quran. That's what I believe. So I do not, but again, people accuse me of not liking Muslims. I'm Islamophobic. This is what wokeism did. What wokeism did was it called everything racist. And so the answer for some people is that nothing is racist. Okay, you're going to call me racist? I'm not racist. My entire ethos in life, my guiding principle is that I want everyone to succeed. And you're going to call me a racist because I'm willing to talk about problems within the black community. That's ridiculous. So nothing is racist. It's not the real answer because racism still exists. But the problem is if I make a point, if I make an argument and you get called racist and you go, I'm not a racist, you look around at other people who are called racist and you say, well, they're probably not racist either because you're just using that word. You're just throwing it out because it used to mean something. Because 20 years ago, if you got called racist, you'd probably go, oh my God, that's terrible. My reputation is ruined. Now, everyone on the internet's called racist every single day, and you just go, all right, whatever. I don't care because I'm not. I detest racism. I hate it. And yet, you're going to call me that. So the word means nothing. And that's how people like Nick Fuentes snuck in because you think if everything is racist, nothing's racist. If everything's anti-woman, anti-gay, anti-Muslim, then nothing is. And that's where wokeism died. That's the problem. The diagnosis is right. Wokeism went too far. You called everyone a bigot. And then everyone looked around and said, all right, well, this is ridiculous. That was a real problem. You can't just call everyone a bigot to win an argument. It's stupid. And it's not a good way to argue at all. You don't just get to throw pejoratives at somebody and then say, I win. Oh, look, we don't talk to that guy. He's a bigot. All right, well, then you don't have to have the debate because I don't debate bigots. Okay, whatever. Then what do you have? Then you have an actual rise in bigotry because everyone looked around and said, well, these guys are ridiculous, and the backlash is coming. That's what happened. I've been talking about this, the pendulum swing. When you want to pull, you're trying to pull that pendulum all the way over here. You say, no, we got to go left. We got to go left. And then it slips and it swings back. And it's going to swing back too far, and hopefully we'll come back and correct in the middle, I hope. That's what we have to do right now, though. That's what we have to do right this second. Because Nick Fuentes is the pendulum swinging the other way too far. We don't want to be that guy. Again, he's a punk. He is a coward. He's 5'7", 140 pounds, dripping wet. He's a punk. He talks like a big, tough guy behind the microphone. He's not, okay? He's not that guy. So I don't want that guy. I don't want anything to do with his movement. I don't want anything to do with the groyper movement. If you have fallen prey to this preposterous ideology, I hope you find some sort of mind vaccine against it. Read a book. I'll lend you one. I got a good one up here by Alan Dershowitz called The Case for Israel. Maybe you could start there. Basically, my point is, they're right about the diagnosis. Wokeism was a problem. They're wrong about the solution. The solution isn't to be the thing that they accused you of. You don't want to actually become the thing. They say you're a mud monster, and you say, no, I'm not. and then you turn into one to prove them wrong? It makes no sense. It's ridiculous, and it's not a good thing. America has problems. These guys are right about that. America has problems. There's a problem that with diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is a bad ideology. There's a problem with the American immigration system. We have too much unfettered immigration and legal immigration. We have too much because the culture of America, and I'm not talking about white culture, by the way, because there are black Americans, there's white Americans, there's Asian Americans. I'm talking about the American culture. I don't believe it's defined by whiteness, but there is something to being an American. Some people think that there isn't. Some people think that American culture doesn't exist. That's ridiculous. Travel the world. Tell me that why America is the global hegemon. Tell me why American music is played in stores around the world. American superstars are on their billboards. Tell me why they cater to Americans and why everyone speaks English. It's not because America has no culture. It's because American culture is exceptional. And when you import a bunch of people who don't share that culture and you don't assimilate them, it's going to change. I don't want it to change. It's not because I don't want brown people or black people or Asians to come to America. It's because I want to, you can accept a certain amount of people and keep the culture the same. If I have a bucket, all right, let's do an experiment here. If I have a bucket and I fill it halfway with water and then I put in a drop of red dye, you go, okay, that's fine. Maybe I shake it up. I put some more water in there. It's still kind of clear. But if I dump a bucket of red dye in there, it's going to be red dye, all right? And I don't want American culture to change. I don't want to live in the Middle East. If we imported 100 million Muslims from Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria and we just brought them to America, do you think America would be the same? No. And it's not anti-Muslim, it's not anti-Arab to say that. It's just saying that America is this thing. It is a belief system. It is a set of ideas. It is a constitutional, law-driven society. And if you brought a bunch of people here who didn't believe in any of that, a society would change. We know that if we take it to the extreme. So I'm for some of the things that the groypers like. For example, cutting back immigration, probably for different reasons. But again, the little bit of truth that's in there doesn't mean that you just get to say, well, because Arabs are dirty, we don't want them here. What the hell's wrong with you? That's not the argument. The argument is American culture is great. If you don't want Arabs here because you don't like Arabs, what the hell? That's not the argument. And I don't agree with you. Even if our solution that immigration needs to be cut back is the same, you're not my friend. This isn't we have a common goal, we're going to be buddies. No. We're not buddies. We're not friends. So it's hard because this is where it goes. Because the groyper movement is anti-MAGA now. They're going against Donald Trump because Donald Trump has done some things they don't like and Nick Fuentes is upset, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. My point for everyone is these guys, these people who are on the far right, we can't normalize them. We can't legitimize them. We can't have them on our shows and have a friendly chit-chat. I don't know. I didn't watch the whole Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson interview. I'm not interested. I'm going to be honest. I saw clips of it. I probably watched 20 minutes of the whole thing. That's it. I don't know. I think they talked for a long time. I'm not interested. I know who Nick Fuentes is. I don't need to watch that interview to find that out because I've seen enough of his show to know who he is. I don't need to watch an interview with Tucker Carlson where he justifies it. I don't need to see it. I don't need to have people like that on my show to have a debate because I know what their beliefs are because they tell you. They're not hiding it. It's not like he's hidden behind a screen and I have to guess what he believes. He's telling you. That's what his show is about. So when I can take clips, not trying to take stuff out of context, but really trying to find out what you believe. And what I really believe is that you're a racist, misogynist, anti-Semite. I'm not just saying that to shut down debate. I'm saying that because that's who I believe you think you are. And I don't need to have those people on our show. And we need to police those people on the far right. I don't want to become the left. I don't want to succumb to this anti-Jew hatred that drives immorality. I don't want to do it. I don't want our party to fall in that direction. So you have to cut these people off. You have to say racism is wrong. Misogyny is wrong. The Overton window is a good thing. Is that going to blow your mind? I've talked so much about the Overton window. We need to keep the Overton window open as wide as possible. I do believe this. I do not think that we need to deplatform people. I think you let people talk. You can hear their ideas. But what does that mean? That it's a good thing. Well, you know where it stops? It stops at, for example, physical violence. We can't threaten people. We know this. It stops at saying things like, well, the Holocaust may have been a good idea. The Holocaust, maybe it didn't happen the way it said. It's all shifty Jew propaganda. I'm not gonna debate that. I'm not gonna have a 9/11 truther on the show to talk about how jet fuel doesn't burn steel beams. I'm not gonna talk about that with people. That's not a thing that I'm willing to discuss. Behind me, I have what is the actual commission called? Oh, off the top of my head, I'd have to remember. I have the commission report, the 9/11 commission report. How many of you morons who think that jet fuel doesn't cut steel beams have read that? Any of you? It's a pretty big book. I'll lend it to you. I'm not going to have that debate. I'm not interested in that. That's outside the window I think is acceptable. Nick Fuentes is outside that window. I'm not interested in having a debate with Nick Fuentes or doing any of this. I think the guy's a loser. I hate internet tough guys. I really do. I dislike them. When you're not a tough guy in real life, Jocko Willink can be an internet tough guy. He's allowed to be. I think he's a pretty tough dude in real life. He can be an internet tough guy. Tim Kennedy can be an internet tough guy. He can talk about fighting and shooting and grappling. He could talk about these things. He's a tough guy in real life. I don't think Nick Fuentes is a tough guy in real life. I think he's a punk with a microphone. And I don't know why people want to listen to him and act like if the world descended into anarchy tomorrow, that he's going to, survive? He's going to be some rebel warlord leader? No, he's a loser. He just, I don't have anything nice to say about him. Anyway, I get too ranty here. My point is, the entire thing can be summed up in this. If you're on the right, if you think of yourself as a conservative, if you think of yourself as a Republican, I agree. Infighting is not always the best way to spend your time, but it is worthwhile because this is how the left got eaten by the radicals. I do not want to see this happen on the right. We have to stop this. You can't normalize Nick Fuentes. You can't legitimize him. You can't sit there and go, well, he made some good points. Of course, he's going to make some good points. 100% of what he said is not dishonest nonsense. He would never have a following. You have to be able to separate the 10 to 20% of what he says that say, okay, this is good and this is bad. I'm not interested in parsing that out. If you're 80% full of shit, I'm not interested in listening to you talk. So it doesn't matter if you say, well, I agree with him on X, Y, or Z. I don't agree with him on the other 80%. I don't agree with anyone 100%. But I have to agree on the certain facts. I have to agree on certain things that make everything in this world revolve and be possible for us to have a conversation. If our worldview is so far divorced from reality, that we can't see each other through the fog, we're never going to have a conversation. I'm not going to have a conversation with that guy. And you shouldn't either, because he's doing bad things. He's doing immoral things by talking about black people, women, and Jews the way that he does. And I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what to do in life, but I think that you need to really examine that because it's a bad idea to give views to people like that. Again, I know he's funny. I know some of what he says has a kernel of truth in it. But the fact that wokeism is bad doesn't mean we get to become the mud monster. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for the day. As always, I'm Tyler Chrestman. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Questions, comments, concerns, down below. Tell me where I'm wrong. Put it in the comments below. I'm happy to respond. And I will catch you guys next Friday.